All right, let's dive into this idea that feels, well, totally backwards. It kind of goes against everything we think we know about freedom. We're going to explore what's called the paradox of choice and how, get this, having more options might actually be making us less happy.
You know the feeling, right? You've had a long day, you open up Netflix and you spend the next half hour just scrolling and scrolling, and then you just give up and watch nothing at all. That feeling, that sense of being completely overwhelmed, that is exactly what we're talking about. It's such a modern problem, but it has some really deep psychological roots.
And hey, it's not just about what to watch. Take a look at this number, 80,000. That's the number of possible drink combinations Starbucks apparently once advertised. I mean, on paper, that sounds amazing, right? The ultimate freedom of choice. But, what does it actually feel like when you're standing in a long line and all you want is a coffee? It's just a perfect example of the insane level of choice we face every single day, even in the smallest things.
So here's the real conflict, right? We're all taught that more choice equals more freedom. It's like the definition of having control over your life. But if that's really true, why does it feel so stressful? Why does standing in an aisle with 100 different kinds of shampoo or staring at a menu that's 10 pages long feel more like paralysis than liberation?
Well, it turns out that feeling has a name. It's called the paradox of choice, and it was popularized by a psychologist named Barry Schwartz. Basically, the theory is that when we're faced with way too many options, our brains just kind of short-circuit. So instead of feeling empowered and free, we get anxious, we can't make a decision, and even worse, we end up feeling less happy with the choice we do make.
Okay, but is this just a feeling, a vibe, or is there any hard evidence for this? Oh, there is. And one of the best and most famous examples of this paradox in action comes from a surprisingly simple place. We're talking about a tasting booth for jam in a supermarket.
So here's how the experiment went down. Researchers set up this tasting booth for gourmet jam. On day one, they put out a huge display. We're talking 24 different kinds of jam. Then, on another day, they switched it up and offered a much smaller selection, just 6 types. And the big question was simple. Which display would actually sell more jam?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. The huge display, the one with 24 jams, it was a magnet. It got 60% of the shoppers to stop and have a look. But, and this is the crazy part, when it came to actually buying a jar, only 3% did. Just 3. The big selection drew a crowd, sure, but it seemed to freeze them up. So, what about the smaller display?
And boom, there it is. The paradox in action. With only 6 jams, fewer people stopped, about 40%. But of the people who did stop, a whopping 30% bought a jar. I mean, think about that. They were 10 times more likely to buy jam when they had fewer options. Less choice didn't just lead to a sale. It led to action, period. So, getting frozen in the jam aisle is one thing. But this goes way, way deeper than that. There are these hidden emotional costs that pile up every single time we get slammed with too many options. Think of it like this. There are kind of 4 big psychological hits we take. First up is regret. You finally pick something, but then you can't stop thinking about all the cool features of the ones you didn't pick. Then there's anxiety, that knot in your stomach that you made the wrong call. After that comes inflated expectations. With a million options, you start to believe one of them must be absolutely perfect, which just sets you up to be let down. And finally, there's self-blame. If you're not totally happy with your choice, you blame yourself. You think, come on, with all those options, how did I manage to mess this up?
Barry Schwartz, the guy who popularized this, he put it so well. He said that with every option you don't pick, you're mentally adding up what you missed out on. And when there are tons of options, those little what-ifs just pile up in your head. It's like you create this imaginary perfect choice in your mind, a Frankenstein's monster of all the best parts of the things you rejected. And of course, the real thing you chose can never live up to that fantasy.
Now, it's interesting, because this whole thing doesn't hit everyone the same way. Psychologists talk about 2 kinds of people when it comes to making decisions. First, you've got the maximizers. These are the folks who have to research every single possibility to make sure they're getting the absolute best. They spend ages on it, and they often end up more stressed and regretful. Then you have the satisficers. These guys are just looking for good enough. As soon as they find something that checks their boxes, they pick it and move on. And guess what? They tend to be a whole lot happier with their choices. Okay, so that's the problem. It can feel like we're stuck in this choice labyrinth. But here's the good news. We are absolutely not doomed. There are really practical ways to get out of it. We just have to learn how to choose smarter.
So here's a 5-step game plan to take back control. First, just decide to be a satisficer. Aim for good enough, not the absolute best in the universe. Second, give yourself a deadline. Seriously. Say, I'm picking a movie in the next 10 minutes, that's it. Third, get ruthless with your filters. If you're buying a laptop and you know you need a great webcam, just ignore all the ones that don't have it. Fourth, put the little stuff on autopilot. Wear the same thing, eat the same breakfast, save your brain power for what matters. And finally, and this one is maybe the most important, once you make a decision, commit. Just let it go. Stop second-guessing.
And when you start doing this stuff, you start to realize that maybe we've had the whole idea of freedom wrong. Maybe real freedom isn't about having a million choices. Maybe it's about being free from the crushing weight of having to make a million tiny, unimportant decisions all day long.
There's this fantastic metaphor from Barry Schwartz that I just love. He said, everyone needs a fishbowl. And think about it. A fish swimming in the middle of the giant, limitless ocean might sound free, but really it's just lost and overwhelmed. A fish in a fishbowl, though, it has clear boundaries, it knows its world. And inside those boundaries, it can actually live and thrive. For us, those boundaries are the limits we set for ourselves. And they're not prisons, they're what set us free. They let us focus our energy where it counts.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, is that by choosing less on purpose, we actually end up with more. More time, more happiness, and way more peace of mind. And that just leaves me with one last question for you. Think about your own life. What's the one choice, maybe even a small one, that you're going to simplify first? What you eat for lunch, the apps on your phone, what you're going to watch tonight. It might seem like a tiny step, but it could be the first step toward getting your real freedom back.